In this video, I'm going to show you how I would attempt to fix the serve of one of my Patreon membership site followers. And usually, those perks are reserved to my Patreon members, but since James is actually facing two issues that I see a whole lot, he agreed that I get to use his footage and, of course, share the tips with all of you so that everybody can learn. Let's look at the serve first. Specifically, two things James is not happy with. One is the high finish here. He doesn't finish across his left hip. And number two, the lack of racket drop. And right off the bat, when I see this serve, there's two pretty big issues. Number one is going to be fixed a little bit easier, and it is this massive step forward here, because that brings a whole lot of instability into the serve. And it does exacerbate the lack of racket drop, or the cause for the lack of racket drop, a little bit, because he has to chase that ball, and that makes that swing path more a horizontal one rather than a vertical upswing if you had the correct grip, your continental grip. Obviously, the first tip is fairly obvious. You could simply say, well, stop stepping forward, stand still. And yes, I'm going to say that, but I'm also addressing what I think is the reason why James has taken that huge step forward, and that is the toss. To me, the toss is too far in front, and because James is lacking the leg drive that we see in players that have tosses that are further inside the court, aka the pros, he has to somehow still make contact, and that is why I think he's taken this step. So the first thing is bring that toss back in to about where your foot used to be. And now obviously when you're coming from tossing the ball that far in front to a little bit further back towards you, it might feel like the ball is almost hitting you on the head if you were to let it come down. And that's exactly what I want you to feel, because the next thing that we're going to work on is addressing the swing path of your racket, which needs to go up. And of course, if you feel that the ball is about to drop on your head, you're now having to reach up to make contact and not just move your racket more in a horizontal way. But before we get to that second step, make sure that you really ingrain that slightly different toss and stabilize your lower body. The second issue is the lack of racket drop. Now, the first thing that we have to understand is that the racket drop is actually, I want to say, a byproduct of our intent to really accelerate up and, yes, slightly forward to our contact point. Notice here how when Madison Keys is accelerating up right here, her entire body goes up and her hand now pulls up to contact point, and that causes the racket to drop. At this point, she's not concerned consciously about having this racket drop. She's concerned about accelerating up as explosively as she can. However, when you're serving with the wrong grip, not the continental grip, the swing path of your racket changes. You simply need to put the strings behind the ball and then, for lack of a better term, push through the ball forward, which then forces you to hit more forward in a horizontal fashion. And because of that, you don't really need the racket drop because you're not accelerating up. However, even if you don't want to change your grip, you can probably still get closer to the ideal form of the racket drop. I would want to urge you to actually use the next two drills that I'm going to show you to start focusing more on the upward motion of your entire body and your racket, of course, your swing path, to go more vertical rather than horizontal. And yes, we're using tennis balls to throw, but we're not going to throw forward because that would actually exacerbate the whole issue. And if you want to see a video where I'm explaining exactly why the serve is not like a forward throw, check out the video that I'm linking below. No, we're going to use throwing balls to really drive home the point that you want to accelerate up. And I'd like this drill with the two balls here. One just in my tossing arm, for me the left, I'm tossing it up. just as if I were to serve. Obviously, I'm positioned as if I'm serving. I'm tossing it up. And then I'm trying to hit that first ball that I tossed with the ball that I had in my right hand. And I don't really care where that ball really lands as long as you're not pitching it forward. What you're focusing on in this drill and in the next is obviously this part here. As everything, my entire body is driving upwards and of course slightly forwards to my imaginary contact point, you'll notice that as my hand is pulling up before I release the ball, if I now had my racket in my hand, and that is the magic of editing, my wrist and the butt cap would be facing up to the sky and the tip of the racket points down. The second drill works on the exact same thing, just slightly in a different way. You have a sock, put 2-3 tennis balls in it, and again, you're just throwing the ball up. And this time it's a little bit more that slightly moving weight, if you will, of the tennis balls here that will pull you into the proper position. And ideally with both of these drills, you'll start to feel the difference between the previous more horizontal swing path to a more vertical swing path in the acceleration phase of your serve. And the wrong grip is also the reason why that higher finish happens. Because if you were to follow through like we normally do with the proper grip across our left hip here, see what my racket does? I would have to very consciously do this, and even then that still feels very awkward. So it's a whole lot easier to just stop the motion here and then do something like this, as opposed to when you're serving with the proper grip and your arm obviously is relaxed enough, your hand is relaxed enough. With our correct grip, I'm allowing my shoulder, my elbow, and my wrist to move, the joints to move in the way that they were designed to move. And it's just a whole lot smoother to finish across your left hip, for me as a right-hander, of course. And you finish up with the butt cap pointing forward. But if you really want to eliminate the root cause of the too high of a finish and the lack of racket drop, you would have to change your grip to a proper continental grip. But the good news is that I do have a video that I'm linking right here that will run you through that process step by step.